Hello and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by the Professor David Gibson and OBE as well. So good afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Lovely to be here, Pete. It's an honor.
Listen, thank you for coming on. So tell us, David, who are you? What are you doing? Where are you from?
I will. Shall I start telling you now?
Please do,
David Gibson, originally from a place called Huckle outside Ballymena, a wee country village. And I'm someone who I suppose has built up, grammar school boy, went to university, tried to find my way, teaching, then accountancy, and did pretty well, but always had this fascination with personal development and with making people change things happen. And somehow I got into university, into this very new thing called enterprise-entrepreneurship education. It was only kind of job going, and out of that, it kind of created this really whole new career for me. Not as an academic, as someone who's very interested in pure research, but as someone who can make a difference to curriculum, to education, to people, and spread that out there into regions and around the world. So it's been an incredible journey, and it continues to be, Pete. Always challenging, always changing.
Would you classify yourself, interestingly, as an entrepreneur? Where do you sit in that?
I would see myself as an entrepreneur because of a very broad definition. I've certainly ran businesses, and I'm 80% professor. Deliberately keep the University of Cumbria. I deliberately keep 20% that I can do my business stuff without being 100% employee, but really running a business. But yes, so I've been a full-time entrepreneur, but I would see myself being an entrepreneur and that I'm a person of change, and that is what I believe we all need to be. An entrepreneur. That does not mean the structure necessarily that we're self-employed, but we're all, as I suppose COVID-19 so have to constantly change, evolve, and make things happen for ourselves, our family, for our community, and beyond.
I mean, it's almost like that ability or that adaptation to change, right? That seems to be a key, really.
And that's right. And when I first developed my model, which came from obviously from working with entrepreneurs, running my entrepreneurial business, I could get and I could see, the strategic documents showed that the global economy was going to mean we were all going to have to be like this. But it's a natural tendency for us all to cling on to, steady job. You maybe think you can work in an industry your entire life. And I suppose, first of all, global economy and financial crisis in 2008 was the first thing, but obviously COVID's really brought it home to us all that how we really have to adapt and change and be like an entrepreneur and an innovator in our own life as well as within our specific job role.
That's amazing, because I mean, we're seeing a period of change regardless of what your attitude is. I suppose at the moment, possibly the biggest era of change in certainly my lifetime anyway. I think, is that fair to say?
It's fair to say I've never seen anything like it, because I did advise all types of business counting. I really understand all types of business and the dynamics of how they work and their finances work, as well as the people side. And it's very tough because models are being slashed. Models, for instance, like retail, that maybe was changing, well then it's just a total profound change. So that is amazing, and people have to understand that and accept it. It's very tough. The government obviously will try to help, but the change is global, the change now, and we all have to change and evolve with it. And it's hard. It's easy to say things work out all right for you. People have got to get out of their comfort zone. It's really not easy for people. But at the same time, you have to look at the realities and learn the lessons.
It's funny too, isn't it? I suppose, I mean, biologically, your body is built to adapt to the environment and heat and change, and everything that's going on biologically. But actually, it's our minds as such that it needs to adapt our thought patterns.
Oh yeah, very much. Our mindset needs to change. we need to develop new types of competences and new ways of thinking. But I've seen so often, and I worked in traditional industries myself. I mean, I did part of my accountancy training in Gallagher. It was a tobacco industry, and you could see it changing and evolving. And I could see local businesses. Many of my friends, Ballymena, they didn't, for instance, go through education. They went into Gallagher factory or Michelin factory. And who could earn good salaries there for 20, 30 years. And I really sympathize with people, but we do have to accept it, see it as a challenge, and move forward. And it can be exciting for me. Being an entrepreneurial person and the ups and downs you get as an entrepreneur, I many times had to evolve or change or face new realities, and that I can honestly say it does lead to new opportunities if you'll keep the mindset and be prepared to keep learning. When you think you're Professor David Gibson OBE and you know everything, and in one sense you profess, of course you don't. You know some things, and we all keep learning all the way through.
It's almost that adage, isn't it? The more I know, the more I realize I don't know.
And that's it. That's disappointing. So you lose that little bit of certainty. But people, the world, everything needs to, it really does amaze me. And I suppose I've been lucky before COVID where I've had a real global journey. I've spent time and with models and work with people all over the world, and I'm still working with them remotely. But obviously it was lovely to try, and you want some of it back. Lovely to travel. You don't want to necessarily travel too much. You suddenly become aware, do I really want to be on an airplane all the time or a different country? But really getting to understand people's culture and spending some time there, I mean, that's incredible. It really shapes you and realizes we all, yes, really are all looking, the same things. There's different cultures, different political structures or whatever, but we're all trying to make things happen, do our best for our family and our country.
That makes a lot of sense, does. So tell us, David, what does fire in the belly mean to you then?
Fire in the belly to me means that you hold on to your passion no matter what, that you will do things, that you are and that you are driven, that you don't stay the same, and you don't lose in whatever you're doing. It might change your role or your industry or what you're wanting to do, but the passion to make a difference, to move forward and change things. But it's also about caring about people in your industry, and maybe learning, as I learn about people outside as well as just you and your industry.
Is that something? I mean, is it something have you had fire in your belly through your life, or is it come and go in different phases?
I think so. I think it's come and gone, but I think it took me quite a while maybe to find. I knew I like to inspire other people. I knew I was in personal development, but I suppose I eventually really found at the university level something that got that passion, really got that fire in the belly a bit more. I would say I still had fire in the belly, but at times I was doing things. It's like me being an out and out accountant. I was fine, I did well, but it wasn't really my passion. It was the interesting bits. And I suppose if you have a fire, but if you can, whatever you do, you can always find links. What I found was the fascination with the entrepreneurs and what drove them, and why were they not succeeding? Why did they get things wrong? So I think I did have it, and you don't know where it's come from. My family. My father was a local sort of entrepreneur, car dealer, but it was something that if I did something that I liked, there was a passion, and I would do my best, and it's always been there. But I've also been in situations where you've lost it a bit if you stay too long in something you don't like because it's the right thing to do. If you don't, if you don't face change, or sometimes you're given challenges that are attacking that fire, but you've got to retain the fire in the belly, along with your ability to learn and innovate. But so I would say to somebody, if you're going to acquire the fire, if you've got, look and see what you've got, but it's finding something that you really care about, that drives you, and once you see, I would say, for instance, my queen of this putting enterprise in the curriculum, once I started to see the difference beyond the mechanics in people moving forward, the fire just got stronger and stronger. Now, many things happened along the way to try and extinguish that fire, or because the more you're bringing about big change and innovation, people don't like that sometimes. So you face challenges, and success brings its own particular challenges. But never, I believe it's something that we've all got a bit of, but we've got to find our niche. I feel it took me longer than a lot of people to find their niche, but I kept exploring, I kept moving forward, and when I found it, what I really saw, the fire in the belly and the past, made all the difference, that I achieved things that would have dreamt I could have got. And the question is, what do you keep passing it on as you get older, or the next stage will eventually be something you put into golf or retirement or pure community work. But I think it's a great thing. It's a great driver. It's a great excitement. Wants you to wake up. Makes you see, once you see you've made a difference, or made a difference long term, it really does almost literally fire your belly up, and you're always wanting to do it. You're not wanting to rest on your laurels.
Oh, it's great. I love that. I mean, that's, you talk about your niche there. I mean, is that something, how long is it, when did that come into play for you? And
well, I would say for me, I really only got it. I was gradually getting there from about late 30s. I was aware what it was, but the idea of, for instance, personal development seems a very American concept, that we didn't do. Really, I learned a lot of my ideas running a women's entrepreneurship course at the University of Ulster. And a lot of the ladies there who'd held high executive jobs didn't have confidence, and they were trying to develop confidence and other skills that naturally weren't there, particularly in society then, and learning how to sell. And I got a lot of those ideas, and the time came from there. So I would say about 40, which is a long time. And like many people, I would have in my career, what do I want to do? Because you do things, you're good at school, so you do a degree in law, so you either become a lawyer, you don't want to be it, so then you become an accountant instead, and which is quite similar. But it's something that some people are great the earlier you find it, but never. What I would say to anybody is never give up. Keep working, keep trying things, keep linking, because it's amazing how a link can come out from the most unusual things. Traditional research, education, should never maybe have led me onto my path or taken me forward, but because I did try to give it my best and went beyond a certain point, then it just opened every door possible. So my view for everyone is keep learning, and keep looking, and never give up, and don't let your present situation knock the fire out of your belly. Keep it, keep learning, and we're always on a learning curve, and no matter how difficult, and keep moving forward.
You talk about 40 then. I mean, I'm always surprised at how actually that's really quite common. We get a lot of guests talk about that actually they get to listen, you call it midlife crisis, you call it midlife opportunity, call it just a point of just actually they change gear. And that, I mean, have you any perception what that was for you, what the trigger was as such?
Yeah, I suppose I'd just had an opportunity to sell my business. I did some part-time teaching. I'd always had little notion of, I'd taken some evening classes and some lecturing, but I'd always had a notion that and I did some enterprise training to build my accountancy practice. One of the first enterprise trainers, more about the realities of running a business led you way back. So that was about 30. And I remember someone saying to me, knew me, said, listen, you enjoy doing that more. Somebody tried to tell me, family member, when you talk about that, taking this course with all these people who know nothing about business and moving them forward and stuff, you come alive much more than when you're talking about somebody's tax affairs or getting an audit done. And it stayed in my head, but it took me a long time to realize. So I think it's common. We can't be expected to know. Maybe the people are lucky who get in their profession, very lucky, and stay the same. For the rest of us, at times it's a matter of evolving and trying things and learn. And we will also evolve. But I do believe your chance will come, and if it comes, you'll have to take it. Mine was a very difficult, it wasn't a nice opportunity, the door open, but it was so difficult that I had to maybe sink or swim in something nobody had done before. And so I went for it. But the rewards of getting through that have been amazing. Not just financially, but career-wise, but impact-wise. I just go, my goodness, when I look back, I go, wow. I mean, this was great. And it all came down a little bit, that little fire in belly talk. Still kept the fire in the belly as I seem to be getting maybe blocked, as people made life different. Everyone said it couldn't be done. Maybe it was the little bit of resigned determination to keep going, but you had to get that breakthrough where you get the first little bit to work, and then you start to put the jigsaw puzzle. But yes, I think people aren't always ready, but I suppose people sometimes do find careers early and really like that one and change to the other. And maybe not like me, where you're on this search, and you do wonder, will I ever do something I truly love? And I'm so grateful that I've had 23 years of doing it, because being later than a lot of people, you kind of think, what is good? Yeah, I'm quite good at school, but what is the thing that I love to do that is me, and I can make a difference? Because just because you're good at skill subjects and gets results doesn't necessarily mean that won't necessarily lead to you finding your passion. You have to keep working at it and moving forward, and be open, and which is a big belief of mine, be a lifelong learner. Remember when I finished my accounts exams, which were a nightmare. I worked during the day, and I did 28 hours exactly every week for 2.5 years, 1 week off in the summer, so I could pass early and get through. And I vowed I would never do another exam or study or learn anything new again, because that was quite sort. But I'm glad that I didn't let that happen, and started to learn in a different way. So it's understanding. I do believe that for everyone, there's something out there that we really enjoy, and we have to persevere. For some, it will come earlier. For some, it will come later. But I do believe it can come if you're open to learning. And it is a buzzword. So lifelong learning, something certainly probably all the government stuff are taught that people have to really embrace now. But you embrace it also for the good reasons, that it can lead to something really that uses your talents and where you can have the biggest impact and really enjoy.
I mean, do you think you're where you're supposed to be now at this point in time in your life?
Yes, I do think so. I've maybe got one last little journey, I'd like to make, in that I'm working to apply a method where I'm changing all aspects of a region. I'm based in a university, but I'm getting the opportunity, Cumbria, to change education right throughout the region with my model. I'm getting a chance to change executives. I'm getting a chance to change social inclusion. I'm getting a chance to change everything in the region coming out, rather than just so that is the last time. And what I want to do that is, and then spread that out, because I do know all these countries who all look and want to be more entrepreneurial, or want a better ecosystem, and want to change that. I because of my trials and tribulations, and even though every case, their culture, situation is different, I know exactly what they have to do. Doesn't mean they'll listen to me. So I think I'm there, but it might be the one big last chance, which I then roll out to other people to use nothing. But yeah, I feel I've had to evolve. You look back and it's easy to say, well, I did that because, and you kind of think, oh, why did I spend all this year? But in actual fact, every little bit, good and bad, informs you, and you learn. Sometimes it's hard to learn at the time if something hasn't went well or you haven't enjoyed. But if you look back, and in fact, it's amazing, the lessons. It's just quite a if you can enjoy the journey, no matter what. It's amazing what you come out with, and I don't think if this thing is, what's my thing, which is enterprise entrepreneurship education, didn't really exist outside the States when I was coming out of university. There may be little initiatives here and there. It was just a new attempt, the umpteen attempt that the UK government was trying to do, but it's now something that every country wants to do. They don't seem to realize sometimes they need to learn how to develop their own customized model. There's a tendency maybe to follow the States because they've had a couple of the biggest high-tech businesses, so therefore they must be the best and all. But that's a limit. That's partly maybe to do with maybe a certain culture in a country, and America's not particularly famous for making students, other than business students or techie students, entrepreneurial or innovative. Same time, they have a very positive culture, and that's something I feel UK, Northern Ireland, etc. We have struggled a little with.
What's the key point then that you're really sort of keen to get across? I mean, what has this all led you to, and what's your message?
I think it's all led me to, is that you must work on your skills and competencies and mindset. Whether you are traditionally successful, you've maybe went into something where you've made lots of money, but you don't love. You're maybe in something you don't. Whatever you are, you're maybe social inclusion, but you need to, learn and try and help and find your passion and improve yourself, but and then give to others. You also get a load by passing that on to others. But I think, as I've said before, you've got to, in one sense, sort yourself out through the process and find your passion, and you keep changing. But it's amazing what we can all do, and we can get so much out of it. I never thought out of work that I could get joy, that I could have impact, that I could have fun. And yes, many challenges, and not every moment was like that, but overall to have got that. So I feel I was I also feel very lucky, but I also believe by keeping going and keeping learning, to a certain extent, I made my own luck. I want everyone that the real message is, you might be getting your industry destroyed. You might be something wrong with your region. We're facing people are facing very, very tough times. You may face constant uncertainty, and you don't want to do that. You have to embrace it because it was there. You have to learn and become adaptable. But out of that will come something new and okay for you if you will go and keep learning. In the short term, it won't seem fair. And I'm not saying everyone should have had to went through the process, but I believe rooted in there are opportunities and change if we will move on. And we all don't move on willingly. I'm the person, I remember University of Ulster, they brought in this very rigorous system of how we were meant to code all our courses and have them for inspections that came from the government. And I know people they didn't want to go to the meetings, didn't want to change, and then you realise there's nothing wrong with that. It does. It does help. So the message is, we, however you're doing, we can all move forward. But you do have to realize the type of world you're in. I mean, COVID is a cruel lesson, but there is a lesson there that something happens somewhere can affect somewhere else, that things can change for us instantly, and no matter how good or what has worked before, it may not work tomorrow, and you need to change with a willing heart and believe, and you will find your niche. That is my core my core message.
I mean, I suppose whilst this is obviously a very period of massive change, it's also history would say that actually it's not the first and it's not the last either. So change will always be.
Change will always be, and that's how it is. And you got to understand that people don't like change. You get, and I say we all have egos where I come up with it. Somebody may will come up maybe with eventually what's a more effective method or get a better, and that's okay. I've got to accept it. We can all do our best.
Out of interest, David, talk to us a little bit about Mini David.
Mini David, me as a child.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Father was called David as well. I have a son called David as well. I had a granddad called David, but I see myself as the Mini David.
That makes you David the Third, then, does it?
Yeah. So it does, yeah. And there is a David the Fourth. A little bit. I wouldn't say we ignored two older sisters. Mother, close father out working all the time. Did quite well at school, showed a bit of imagination, but left quite a lot on his own. I'm quite a gregarious person, but like people. But as a child, it was a lot of time on my own, coming up with my own ideas, learning different things. But there was and I don't know where it came from, but I was competitive in sport. I wanted to do well, but I always had little ideas, maybe a little bit ahead of my time. Wasn't very good at applying them. Out of maybe it might have been a football or something, and I couldn't apply it, but I knew about something different. So somehow I had an open mind, and say I didn't really get into reading until I was about 9, but certainly reading opened up my horizons. So small, village boy, loner, I suppose, a kind of middle class environment, and then on to the big local grammar school where you're nearly, which becomes different. But it was funny in that I was maybe a little bit separated from my village. What tended to be in a hawker where I come from, usually in those days, only one person got the 11 plus each year. So you were one person going to the grammar school. All your friends from primary school, they all went to the secondary school, and they changed and evolved in a different way. They were much cooler at 14 or 15. You were sort of in your exam. Eventually, you came together again. So I do think I'm shaped by that I like people, but I can work on things on my own or make things can be in my own way, can be quite independent, and do something. And that comes from, my family were good to me. It sounds as if I'm not saying it, but I was kind of a little bit left behind. My father was out working all the time, and I used to vow that would want to be in business or something like where you were never there for your family. I'm lucky with my boys growing up. I somehow managed. I don't know how I managed to combine it all. I really don't know. But you work at 100 with them and with life at 100 miles an hour. It's amazing what you can do. So shaped by that local environment. And yet maybe subtly that the fact my father was an entrepreneur, vowed I never would be one, and then I became one. Then it's and even worse, almost at times became one at times within corporate environments where you're up against all these rules of governance and do. So maybe I had a fair bit of freedom at home to do what I want, and that led me that I don't want to break rules, I respect rules, but I work independently and maybe can change things. So I feel I'm quite shaped by that background. My sisters, one was married quite young, the other was very good, very good to me. But it was the child village. Most people worked in the local factories. My dad was a car dealer. You're a little bit separated off, certainly, particularly maybe from age 12 when you left the the village primary school. Then you come together late, at 16, when you're all trying to be cool and go out and do that. But yes, I feel like I am quite shaped by that, Pete.
Out of interest, what did Mini David want to do when he grew up? What was the plan?
Oh, Mini David, and he still loves books. He wanted to own a bookshop. When he found reading about 9 or 10, he wanted to own a bookshop and just read books and sell books all the day. So I think that was one. Never really wanted, when Mini David became about 60 and discovered tennis, for instance, he wanted to be a professional tennis player with no real skill and no chance of becoming one. But he did quite well, mainly on his pure competitiveness and mindset rather than his skills. So mother would encourage her what was wanting some profession, maybe a teacher and a bookseller. She used to try and add the teacher bit. So someone who sold books, and then you go to grammar school, and then you're kind of filtered into this professional career. So at 14, I decided I wanted to be a solicitor, and then found law bored me. It wasn't me at all. Yeah, if I could go back, I think at times, but too late in my life at times, I'd always have loved to have been a professional sports person of some type. I love all sports. I love the competitiveness of them. And even Mini David then at 22 took up squash and then decided he wanted to be a squash. So I was deciding I'm going to be professional, then realizing I wasn't going to make it or even be prepared to put in the work. So when I did my squash coaching exams, when I found you really need to train 8 hours a day because of the level of fitness, then it went down. So there was a little bit of wanting to achieve something, to perform, to compete that was there. And maybe, if I'm being honest, maybe someone who wanted recognition as when maybe you felt you wasn't ignored at home, but what tends to happen, if two older sisters, one who did pretty well at school, the second one very well. I did very well also, but once she did well, no one was that interested. I was fine. Yeah, he's doing well now. So you were a little bit not ignored, but you were wanting to find something you could excel at, and maybe get noticed. But it certainly took me a long time to find that, Pete.
It's always interesting, isn't it? No matter how old you are or where you're at, you can always reflect back to those times and core feelings and values and things like that. So
it's right, and it is a huge influence, and it's interesting. It's really interesting, yes, to reflect on it. And it's interesting. I think the hope for everybody is, and you can see I'm not smug about what I've done, but I'm happy and still excited about it. And I've had such a great phase, particularly say the last 20 years have just been amazing. It's great to know that, yes, it may not come immediately, but keep moving forward, keep being yourself, and put yourself out there, and you will find your thing. And when you do, you will excel, but most of all, you will really enjoy it. And I've been the person driving into work, maybe making good money, but not wanting to go in because I hated what I do, to the joy of waking up, going to do something. We seemed a difficult job and with a lot of opposition, but I loved it and I wanted to be in there. And that's great that you can get there.
I mean, who's the inspiration or the driver for you then? I mean, because you talked about, the accountancy side and the teaching side. I mean, were you pushing yourself or was it coming from somewhere else?
I honestly think I was really pushing myself. I had it before I went into the accountancy. I did a little bit of teaching, but it was with YTPs at local tech, and that was kind of my first job for a year. And then I left in one sense to get on, and I hadn't felt plus because it was quite difficult. I was 22. All the kids were really tough, local kids, 17 in Antrim, and it was fine. But I didn't know what I was going to do. So I tried to move me forward, but I took many wrong routes in doing it. But I kept I kept moving forward. But it's great to anybody at any stage where you don't feel you're nodding your knees or you're not really happy. I hope my story said that you can find it. And I found this thing that hadn't really been invented, which was entrepreneurship education for everyone, starting up with for every type of student. Yeah, business study students were taught a bit. In America, the MBA class, did a bit. Sometimes it was like that, but not for everyone. So weird to find something new and different, and yet was needed and moved on. So I feel blessed that come up. Yes, I took my chance and I put a lot into it, and I learned a lot and developed models. So I think it's so. But yes, it certainly wasn't a straightforward journey. I suppose it never is. But you get to I look back and think, wow, I've maybe said at a certain stage, 37, I'm not particularly doing some things what you enjoy, but finding what you enjoy and are good at, very, 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 very important. And being prepared to learn and be resilient and take notes, because it's never straightforward.
No, it is. I mean, the learning, the life, life is about learning. That's what it is. It's a journey, right? It's that.
It very much is, and yes, the minute you think you know something, and that's where Maya's never, something new or something has come in, and you will face time, because I've spent years people trying to, I got even fed up with my own E-factor model, because people weren't saying it, and I knew it worked, and people weren't saying it, and you kind of go, I just give up on it. And at one stage, even it didn't work, and then other people saw it, or when other people looked, and they really couldn't find a fault. So you do sometimes have to be patient and keep moving, and it's hard when you're doing something good, and yet you do have somebody somewhere has to see you're doing it, or somebody somewhere has to measure the impact. But I think, Rafael, the most important thing is that you're doing good, and that your time will come. But yes, it really is quite a journey. But I feel if you will develop and learn yourself, you'll find something. And the more you do something that you do with joy and with passion, the better you'll do it, and the more impact you'll have.
It is always interesting, as you say, that sort of, no matter your niche or no matter where you're at or what you're doing, is like, if there isn't passion behind it, if there isn't sort of values and beliefs behind it, no matter how well trained you are, how good your niche is, it just has a different effect, right?
You're absolutely right, and so there's no point doing exams or doing so because it's the right thing. And you'd see these stories, where somebody, family doctors wants the son to be a doctor, or and so on, or various types of things. And if your parents supposed to realize that people need to find their thing, and it may be totally unusual, it may not be, you may be educated, may not be educated, it may be a different profession, but it's finding something that they do well and they have a real joy and interest, because life is very short, and we spend a lot of time working, and we need to do something that brings joy and where we make the best impact, and the two usually go together.
Through your childhood and through your teens, and who was having the most influence on you then?
That's a really good that's a really good question. I'm not sure that I can answer that well. I think it was just a mixture of outside influences. I think maybe a few good teachers that inspire. It's funny, I don't see very much of one of my brother-in-laws now who came and taught English at Ballymena Academy, and met my sister who was doing her A-levels, but he was a very inspirational teacher. So a few inspirational teachers in the grammar school who encouraged you, who gave you a chance, and sometimes unlikely. It might have been a games teacher. Like, I decided at 17 I was going to play tennis, And then the next thing was in the team, and then the next thing I was playing in tournaments. It would be me, and the guy who was a chemistry who took it was, and I didn't see much of him after a year or two, but he really started me in the process, encouraged me, and did it. So there are a lot of people who give you time just doing their job, particularly maybe in something like teaching or something that encourages you. But there were no maybe big role models. Certainly, there were some guys I could point later in the 70s now who's a big name in entrepreneurship education, and he certainly inspired me in a speech 1 year into my job at Queen's and got it. And I don't think he did very well in his career, but I don't think he ever maybe applied the curriculum himself to the extent that I did. But his idea and his kindness and his inspiration, you get people in positions who are very important, who do still want to help other people and inspire them, and you get other people who protect their territory. And he was very kind and always support. So you get people like that who that maybe came at a later stage who it really inspired me to move forward with that area. He talked about entrepreneurial competencies and elect, but he hadn't ever really applied it. And I went, wow, that's the word. And he talked about it with passion and such. So I hope that I will, having applied it and taken it forward, that I can do the same.
It's always an interesting concept, that those that sort of learn to hold and to build themselves up, and then those that learn to pass it on. I mean, what for you is the core difference there?
I think you maybe have to mature a bit. You do have to protect your areas. When I've had to fight internal battles wherever I've worked, you had people who've ignored my model, because they see us as sort of rivals, as the big people in the industry or in this area. I think it just varies from person. I think sometimes people who do really, really well just can still have a generosity. Maybe it's people who don't directly compete, but some people are mature about it, and you realize it's not about you being right and me being wrong, and I'm the number one and you're only the number two. We're kind of in this together. Some people are like, well, we really we'll do more if we will collaborate, but it does vary. But I have had experience of people taking the opposite attitude. Fortunately, I think one of the things I got from a background, I was maybe a very determined man and spent a lot of time with him, but underneath my reasonable, friendly bond thing, I seem to have got, or whether because as the youngest child or whatever, got really quite a bit of determination to keep going, just because obstacles would have been put in my path. So I think it can vary from individual, but sometimes a lot of people, once they reach a certain stage, can be relaxed. I mean, I feel like that now. Yeah, maybe I would say maybe 15 years ago I might have been going, well, my way's better, my way's right, your way's wrong. You get into the same as everybody else. I think it's maybe a culture thing, where you feel you're always in competition and realize you really should be in collaboration. It's really a culture thing we have in the UK and Ireland. Let's work together. We're different. We've different ideas. We're different things, but we would all get more out of it. And so it's easy to get polarized. It's really learning a respect for people that are different, and a generosity. But I don't forget the people that were generous to me, and I forgive myself if I've done it, if I haven't been generous to other people, but also people who they thought the way was blocked, don't let him go beyond, or don't show his method, or ignore. And I could tell you some stories. This is not for some bit of what was done to me at times, and it really was a bit bitter. I really couldn't understand why you would do it. I don't think I would ever have been like that, and yet I understand. People building profile, there's always competition in things. Yeah, I understand where coming on. They really didn't mean me any harm. I maybe at times then took it a bit personally because I couldn't understand why somebody did it. It wasn't something I would have did that much. But yes, I had maybe been out one times to kind of pinpoint that I did more than anyone else. You know, I was winning all the, I won about 40 awards, and I was winning all the awards you get in, you know, and you're starting to win all this. And funny thing, you win the awards quite often go to your university or your institution or your place, and it's not really, even if it is your work, but it was a little bit of privilege. And you know, I know I'm probably going to go for some more soon because you got to prove then the next stage of the model. But I'm a little bit past it. You know, if I didn't win the award, it was like a big child at the start. You know, first year Queens didn't win the times higher when we should have, for whatever reason. You know, I took it very personally. That, you know, so you learn, and but that's come to me with age. But I really did let it bother me when I couldn't understand why people didn't include me in things, or why people would deliberately ignore your model or whatever. When all you really want in the end of the day, when you come up with something good, you want to make sure it's shared news because you know it works. It's that's maybe something come with age. So if people, whether people are like that younger, if someone is, they're maybe a bit more mature or ahead of their time. But sometimes it's quite hard to be an achiever, and yet not, because you'll be building your brand, you'll be getting it out there. If you could be generous to other people, it'll be much better, or collaborate. But sometimes it's hard because if someone's blocking you, will you block them, or will you block when there's no real reason to it? And you've got to understand, forgive people, understand where they're coming from, understand why they're doing it, and it's not their right and you're wrong, and just be relaxed about it and move forward. So that's something I had to learn. I'm now quite in, and my wife's helping me into a lot of things like meditation, a lot of stuff, relaxation strategies, and all this stuff, you know, to do with resilience, and learn to get rid a lot of the ego and that type of thing, without losing your edge of making it happen, and enjoy the things that go wrong as well as the things that go right, and learn.
Talk to us about your I suppose understanding, or your relationship with ego then in general.
With what, sorry?
Your relationship with ego, your ego.
With ego. Yeah, I would say you spent a lot of time, I probably did, where maybe, and we go back, you're asking my childhood, maybe been a little bit ignored as a child, not in a bad way, but trying to show you were good. Or comes grammar school boy, you're uncool, you're a wee short fat boy at Ballymena Academy, quite good at schoolwork, which is not cool. Not Mr. Cool Kid, you know, until about 17, and then you get a little bit. You do maybe want to prove yourself, or someone to show you're good. You know, I am satisfied. And maybe when it comes, you can get an ego. I would say my ego was very high at one stage, maybe at Queen's, because I'd had such an incredible time then, and I had a few lessons to learn, and they were quite painful lessons in the end, because a new form of senior management changed after I did everything 10, 11 years, and was ready to move on to the next stage, and they didn't want what I had. So I'd say, yeah, you can start to believe your own publicity, or start to feel you're important. So sometimes when you suddenly get what I got at Queen's, I would say, and you're getting all this information out of me, Pete, is that it was like the child who, in the background, a little bit ignored, play, you know, on his own, got a massive attention because out of this thing that was going completely wrong, I had somehow managed to chase this. So I got treated unbelievably by the very top people, the vice chancellor, the top people, for a number of years. And then, quite simply, how it works in organizations, they all retired after won all the awards, or tell them, and then it all changed, and the new people really wanted to go much more down the research and almost pretend all this that happened. So yes, I think when you get attention, or when you get people phone or people telling you all the time, like, you know, it is nice. You learn a little bit to be a bit more relaxed about it, and so that at least was a good lesson, that I never have got quite so carried away. You know, you've got to work, I suppose, gradually to take your ego away. And yet, of course, while not doing that, we all still subtly need to get our brands out, get our message forward. But yes, suddenly attention, you know, Queen's, I was going where maybe, you know, you're doing a talk, 5,000 people in India, and people are grabbing onto you, and such from you're a Ballymena accountant, or it was ignored. So the story, and I meant to put it in my TED talk, was said the Queen's thing where this young lady grabbed onto my foot as I come off stage, the 5,000, everyone applauding in Calcutta, you know, because then they try to push relationship to, you know, an organized education. I'm going, I think I'm a rock star now. And I did, you know, sort of, you know, and then someone told me that's actually a sign of respect for the elderly in India, you know, so I was only maybe 42 or whatever then. So that was a really good, you know, understanding. So I think the other side of the Queen's experience, where they really changed in their attitude to the new people, I was actually quite hurt at the time, because I was determined to make Queen's way above all the, you know, I could the bit between, and I would have done it. They do fine there, the old Russell Group universities, like that. They'll always do fine here anyhow, but was really taking them internet through this, but they didn't want it, so you had to accept it. So I took it as a real, it was very hurtful to my ego that people could change, but it, in one sense, got rid of a bit. So you can kind of go where you don't really think you that much of an ego attention. So attention or doing well could be good, but you've got to come to terms with it. So I wasn't very grateful for what was happening at the end of that stage, but I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful now, because I was more, and then I had even much more success very easily at Liverpool, without the ego, and then without needing the ego, and then I suppose they didn't want to stay and change the world and it's all about me or whatever. Decided to move on after I did it all for them on my own, on my own accord. So yeah, it's important not to lose your sense of self, or not to be happy if you feel you've done something good, but you have to learn to be a bit more relaxed and put it in its context. And I suppose other people a bit older have taught me. Someone like David Kirby, who's an incredibly modest man, but has been very successful. I think life and people will probably always bring you into it, but it is funny. It is strange to go, and you can also people who are real superstars. Remember, we can be so hard on them, whether it be someone like George Best or other people, where you go from where, you know, no one is paying attention, where everyone changes. I think some of the lessons I learned where I had, you would get people who, when something was working really well, everyone would be around, and then some of those people would disappear when things weren't going so well, and that was a good lesson, because you realized, you know, forget the ego. So I think it took me those lessons, simply because it took a long time before I really had what I would say, in one sense, big impact or big success. And maybe a longer time than most to mature, where, you know, you now realize it's the small things, it's the changing something that can do, you know, it's not financial impact short term. Have you changed something? Have you helped somebody? And I feel humbled now when, say, I keep coming across people who knew me, Queen students, who are always linked in with me on LinkedIn or whatever, and they tell me a story or link with LinkedIn something from it, and I feel that's great. And that's what every teacher, that's not just me at Queen's, quite often every teacher type person who inspires or helps other people change gets. And it's not like money in the bank, but it's impact in the bank, that to know you're doing worthwhile work. So be much more relaxed. I feel I've much less of an ego. At the same time, and I struggled because one of my core competencies, as you know, is personal branding, building your own profit. And if I hadn't did that inside Queen's or outside, you wouldn't do it. So it's hard not to go with it. Everyone was kind of, they were all ignoring, no, nobody is doing this. And I knew it was work, and I had to kind of put myself forward with an ego and with a very, in doing it. Whether I would do it again as maybe more mature, but it was something I felt had to be done. But yeah, it comes with it, but you really need to work on it and let it go. So it's hard to get that mix, but particularly if you're building a brand, and the brand is you or what you've done or your university, and remaining humble. The irony is, the people probably I like best is not so and so the superstar, or so and so the sports star, so and so the incredible entrepreneurs, educator. I probably really like down to earth people who are relaxed and humble. And I believe I'm a lot humbler now, and yet I still want to get what I want out there, and so that it always remains a challenge. Because I do believe in our society, we're brought up, and Northern Ireland's a big example of this. You're brought up not to say you're good at anything, or you've done anything. Be a good little boy, get your 3 A's, and say the exam was really hard. You don't say, yeah, I reckon I crushed that, and I'm really good at my subject. So we go, so it's lovely. They've got 3 A's in their A levels, but they're also nice, quiet, modest person. So it's hard, but yes, it's quite fascinating. I'm certainly much more at home and now, and I'm really grateful for the lessons which I didn't like, which brought my ego down a bit. And there was a stage when I couldn't laugh. I could tell you all sorts of stories where people taking my ideas, or people making sure I wasn't invited to an award ceremony when I won the entire thing for a university. I'll not go into the details of that, but unbelievable thing, which were, a little bit tough, when if it was 100% your thing, and you're actually not at the award ceremony when it's short, as a for someone that's dead, and people play these games at times. But I'm much more relaxed about it now, but it's probably taken me quite a while to develop it. And finally, I'm not going too much more with my big ego about my big ego, Pete. But so it's being able to be a bit more relaxed and understand it all changes. You're in and out, and people sometimes see you as this certain person, and you're just an ordinary person. Some good bits, some bad bits. He's been lucky enough to find a niche with at times, but it will always be an issue, because I believe, like a lot of the way we're brought up here, being able to do it in a good way. I mean, I think without knowing you that well, I think you're maybe quite good at it. I think, and I know this is about me as podcast, but it's finding the balance of. But I believe stronger than anything I'm wanting to do now, because I'm that little bit older. I want that impact to be there for other people more than me. I've had more than enough. So maybe I had something to prove to me, and my ego says that maybe that helped me. And the more I got dismissed by everybody and told it wouldn't work, and the more I seemed to the Ballymena or the O'Huckle man in me, the more I seemed to raise the occasion to do, and ultimately it was good. But yes, let's keep the ego in check.
Interesting, in the couple of times that you seem to be sparked by a problem, or by someone saying that's not possible. Is that a fair pickup?
Yeah. Yes. And I think but I think more now when you've had one particular time, you realise every other time can do it. When I was told that it couldn't be done at Queen's, I wanted to do it, but you were kind of almost because it did seem an impossible situation. I can't probably say why did I. Part of it might have been, well, yeah, I always have found some other type of work, but I was in quite a situation to leave and move back. What wasn't going to be easy. So partly I had no choice. But once you've faced that once on a scale or a couple of times in your career, and you realize that it can be changed, or you've seen some other inspirational models. So I've always admired, whereas in people like in the UK, if someone did badly in business or badly in their work or did something wrong, we have a tendency, UK and Ireland, to write them off for life. No matter even if they did something good after that, they're still wrong. Well, I always like maybe the American attitude, who like the fact if things do go wrong for them, but they actually learn from it and come back, and that's a good thing, I suppose, in their culture, that people will do it. But I think probably the first mate, when you come back that or learn something that first time, then you it can be done again. I'm sure if you ask anybody, say at Queen's that day, is this going to work? No, nobody thought it was going to work inside out. Even the people whose names were on it, and they all dismissed it. Just going to die and probably lose all the money, and it never happened. So yes, whatever it is, and again, these are maybe things. It's like in the family, become a fairly determined person, or somehow I maybe got it there. He used to accuse me of being, if you know that word, a bit thran as a child. So whether there's underneath my bonhomie, there's a little bit of thranness, and you didn't expect, but somehow, coming from my situation being in the North, there was a type of determination that you wouldn't imagine, because I don't necessarily come over really aggressive or would have been super confident. There was something there molded me, and that's why I was quite good at competitive sport. No racket skills, not very good hand-eye coordination, but boy, a will to win and capacity to do much more than my natural talent showed. It's difficult. It is difficult to pinpoint. I do think sometimes it may be, I make myself sound as if I was a poor neglected child, just the youngest by 6 years, 2 older sisters, father very busy in business, mum, just someone who maybe didn't get a lot of attention, and you wonder, is that something that you sought, and then you get relaxed about it, when you realize it's a double-edged sword. But yes, there would be a determination, and I say, once you've got, I don't know how, the Queen thing, somehow you've got to keep going. And say you get a lucky break. Maybe I might have seen in my early 40s, and that could be wrong, because we're always in our last chance, that maybe Queen's was my last chance to have a really big impact, and yet that wasn't certainly how I thought about it in the start. If it had all been straightforward, it might never happen, because it turned out to what seemed a poison challenge and very difficult. As I think I said in my talk, I either had to sink or swim, because and so I was faced with a situation where I had to call upon. But yeah, there's a quiet determination there.
Typically, are you pain focused or pleasure focused? Where do you sit on that?
Ooh, I sometimes think I might be more driven by the pain. I do think, you want the pleasure. Maybe sometimes, when you get all the things, whether it be money or accolade or all of that, you put in terms, it's not maybe quite what you think. But I think there were yeah, I think always my years of pain probably were, even when I might have been doing quite well in conventional terms, but you weren't doing something you liked or you were inspired with, you really weren't, you really weren't getting excitement. Suddenly, where I would go to be, couldn't wait to jump on the 7 o'clock train to Belfast, or to drive 2 hours to Belfast on a in the morning, and suddenly, simply because I found my thing. But I think, yes, the pain would be an unlikely thing that the more, I think it might be a Northern Ireland thing, or all our backgrounds, but the more difficult you made for me, and maybe that thran little boy, would get going, and you'd never would never dream. But so I think more pain. And you learn, you think you'd like to have the lovely house or the fancy car or the accolades or the awards, or to be named for the word number one, or people saying you are, but that does I'm not saying I don't like it. People pretty much like my TEDx talk. People were nice. That was nice. But 20 years ago, maybe I would have lost my head. But now, no, that's good. That's nice. I hope it helps to get the message out, and helps other people. But I do think you are, shaped at those various stages. But yeah, so I'd say more pain than pleasure.
Talk to us then about, because obviously you had a very extensive career, almost in accountancy wise, and then you've transitioned across. What triggered the transition, and what was the mindset?
Yeah, I think I'd never really thought, I'd had a short little bit of teaching in FE, but YTP wasn't a very good experience of it at the start. And then I did accountancy, in one sense, to get on for all the wrong reasons. And I did my industry experience, then I did my practice experience. So I did that, but I think what I did from the minute I qualified, because no one wants to teach accountancy because it's boring and everything, I was lecturing part-time in the University of Ulster. And I didn't particularly enjoy it. It was for the professional exams, and it's a bit boring. But what I did enjoy was, very quickly, and I did it to build my practice and get a lot of clients out, led you as they were then, now invest in. I somehow got involved in enterprise training, where you would go and get paid to take classes around the enterprise centre, people starting their own business. And I so much enjoyed that practical interaction, or showing people what not to do or what to avoid, or maybe helping them a bit with skills. I love that. So I think that planted a seed that was there. I then got a chance to sell a bit. So I was always doing that enterprise training, doing that, and that was becoming more and more my almost passion on the side. Like I went away, and I eventually qualified as an NLP trainer. I never really practiced in theory as an NLP trainer, but I started getting interest in that, or in those courses. So there was such an interest in personal development, such a struggle at times to apply yourself, sometimes easier other people than yourself. So the chance came to sell a business, and the chance came to get a job. So I was applying in what would have been called Northern Ireland Small Business Institute at University of Ulster for about 2, 3, 4 years before I eventually got a post, and it just came around the time when I got an offer for my business. Accountancy practice is quite easy to sell because you've got all these repeat clients who do business every year. So it was a gradual thing, and the two almost happened at the same time. I sold the business within. I was still doing some type of teaching. So even right from the moment I became, first of all, a partner in accountancy practice, I was lecturing at least one morning a week at University of Ulster. So there was something there telling me what I want to do, but still teaching account, because I kind of, what I loved and didn't realize was this concept of being enterprising and of making things happen. So gradually the ideas evolved. But yeah, I would have dismissed going into university. I didn't think there was enough money in it. I would have dismissed it, in that, because it wasn't really a highly paid job. very good time either to research or time to a lot more time than the full-time hassles of a business. But it suddenly dawned on me gradually that either as a business or at the university or both, where you do something you're really good at and loved. I suppose accountancy, I was okay at it, but I didn't love it, and I was okay. I would really build rapport or understand the business, and I got a lot out of it, but I didn't think I loved to do an audit. I love to do a tax computation. Nothing some people do, but it's the fact, I think, as I said in my talk, I really discovered that people's businesses were going down because they couldn't negotiate or because they couldn't create a way out of it. You suddenly saw. I suddenly saw a little bit of it coming again, and it took time. And then I got courses to practice on Ulster, and then I got this weird situation. I mean, we were all made redundant at the University of Ulster. Turner struggled 12 months. I worked on because I liked it. Never thought I was getting into somewhere, and this very lowly paid job came up at Queen's. I thought, well, maybe do that and give a few lectures. So I didn't even understand it was an opportunity. So opportunity came from the pain or the difficulty that I found when I went in. But it was something. I feel sometimes somebody was looking out for me wherever, somebody in the universe, whatever, to give me my chance to do what I love, because so many of us spend time working projects, whether lucrative or not, doing careers or doing things, and you get family and you get kids and you get mortgages, and I used to see in people years ago, but it's amazing how everyone can get in. So I eventually got my chance to make a difference, to do something that I loved. But it's almost once I solved the problem and came through that pain, then I really got the chance, because it opened up. I happened to find a thing whose time had come. Sometimes I feel with good luck, certainly not by my good judgment. It was just sometimes I think maybe the universe sent me my chance, and I took it.
It's funny, isn't it, though? I mean, it sounds almost like as an accountant, it was like the numbers just weren't enough. As you say, you were looking past the numbers, and
yes, I couldn't pass on. I just felt the numbers. People like, yes, the number, but it's like it was haphazard. The numbers only came if people had the skills or kept the business, and it was just so left the chance on that. It was a huge belief. And even when I went to Queen's, everyone just go, "Oh, I'd be sitting with these black dudes. Yeah, entrepreneurs are born, or you're better born one, or you're not." And that was accepted. And there's a certain amount of element in genes and a certain amount of other things, but there's so much you can learn to do. But it was almost seen as heresy in that day. Still is in some areas to a certain extent. Yeah, people want to run how to become a high-tech entrepreneur without really working on the company. I mean, for me, a wee Ballymena boy to come up with the first and very competency model, and the fact that there wasn't one elsewhere. There's a few trying to spring up now, but and even with that, for years, people still didn't see it. So sometimes things just, I don't know, pure accident, but they're the crazy mixed up mixture things that I did, that I still did the teaching, that I was somehow always interested in personal development, even though I was ending up doing a job which I didn't like in one sense with my development, but it did give me a lot of exposure to really understand business and people and entrepreneurship. So I was very lucky that. But once you get your luck, once you get your chance, you must take it. You don't. I'm sure we all get a second or third chance, but that was my. I did get my chance, but I got it. I got it quite late. Sometimes, but when I think back, wow, how could you have had all that energy or want to go and do that? And yeah, I was reasonably financially comfortable. My wife had a good job as well. I didn't really need to do it. Yeah, and it's fascinating to reflect on it. What would have become if I just left Queen's in that second week when it was like everybody's telling me it couldn't be done. It was all nonsense. It was all going to be claimed back. And these are the people who were meant to be running, or who I was reporting to. But the change in attitudes and senior management attitudes when they saw it worked, and yes, that worked for their institution, but it still brings me joy when I think how they saw it and how it was a lovely change around that will always remain with me. I'm never looking to prove I can do all these incredible things again. I want to help. I want to contribute. But yeah, I think we can be multifaceted. I think for me to do what I did, the background of so much experience with all sorts of business, having worked with big companies like Gallagher, but also so many types of businesses, and really understanding them mixed with my people, it gave a strong background, but almost more by chance, almost more by destiny rather than planning. But at least I took my chance.
It is too. I mean, that's the thing. It's well, one, recognizing a chance and actually stepping forward at that time, because especially, as you talk about, if you've got a good job or an okay business or whatever it is, well, that's a very warm safety blanket wrapped around you. So it takes a lot of well, I think it does it? Does it take a?
I think it is. I think it is. And you, in particular, you have to have dependents or whatever. Yeah. I mean, I know I could in a few months. It took a lot. Even when I still kept going, it was a long time. But you always find people. There's one guy, I won't mention his name because he might not want to be mentioned. He's actually based in Lisbon, and he's quite self-effacing. But he was quite, and he was not like me at all. Complete opposite of me. Very good at managing the Queen's system and covering my back as I did all these good things, but maybe quite outrageous things. And so, even that person was sent, was a tremendous. I mean, I got all the credit. If you're talking about ego, that person, no ego, wanted to stay in the background. And yeah, I was the face of it, but certainly not easy for people to make it. And that's why sometimes situations that we think are painful can be good because they force changes. So certain things, maybe for me with health, COVID stuff, I've learned a lot more about everything from anxiety, mental health, learning how to, I might have known all the theories, but I've literally, like so many of us, have had to learn to apply them, to look after myself. I'm 4 stone lighter than I was, but learn some of the stuff that I might have knew about. And so again, that at least is in keeping with, that's some of the latest curveballs that I've been sent, that I've learned from before. You can move with a curveball, and out of that, not only just help yourself, but help yourself, yes, maybe first, but then can help other people. So now I'm literally writing a E-Factor, very focused on the resilience. So that's the first book coming out, and I'm writing one on each separate competency. I've also written every year, very weirdly, Christmas stories, some very odd Christmas stories. I'll just send you some where it's like, where they're almost semi-autobiographical, but meant to be fun, different way of getting enterprise lesson, Christmas time. And this person, one person saying the last one is this highly successful entrepreneur's education who falls flat in his face and faces all sorts of problems and has to learn and be helped by other people in a Christmas setting. It's just a different way of getting the message across, because I want people to learn and to be inspired that they can be the best they can be. That's my core thing.
Talk to us about the E-Factor then, because I mean, it's something that's obviously come up a lot for you. And
yeah, I mean, I designed it. Was really before it was, I'd been taking notes literally as as kind. Well, do need to negotiate. You do, and you can learn it. And really wasn't accepted wisdom. Then the women's entrepreneurship course, where there was personal development built in. At that stage, and you're talking around about late 1990s, early 2000. Personal development was kind of poo-pooed a little bit for me. You might have got a bit of management development, but it was kind of seen as an American-y thing, and we don't do this. So I was gradually developing, and then I had to find a model at Queen's that would be relevant to everyone. So there's no point. Yeah, you study the theories of entrepreneurship if you do management. Well, you don't really study the theories of entrepreneurship if you do nursing, or if you do engineering, or if you do environmental planning, or you do drama. So I kind of gradually got it in what were the 5 or 6, 7, 8. And then literally the next thing, and this is the truth, someone came to, was wanting me after my first initial bit of success, and said, we want you to buy one of our entrepreneurship books to use with your, because we hear you're getting quite a lot of people to do entrepreneurship. And I said, well, there's no book out. They said there's no book out there. And I said, I'll write one for you. And he said, we've got 2 months. And so I did it. I wrote it in 2 months and systemized it, and but I was very lucky. I had a very good friend in Scotland who was an occupational psychologist who really developed a very, very professional kind of competency framework behind what I did, where I could measure what I was doing. So it gave me a system where people could see that was relevant to them, whether they wanted to start a business or not. People were saying, it was clear. Gordon Brown, who was the Chancellor of Exchequer at the time, it was very clear the money that given to these universities was not just that students would start businesses or be entrepreneurs, but learn to cope with the global economy and to change. And no one was getting that, and no one else. So I found that model people use, and everyone got it. It was simple, and yet it was rigorous. And people could measure where they were and I measured where they were for about the kind of, as part of my proof that it lasted long term. So it just became a way. It could be put in easily, or you could get educators to use it in how they taught, getting students to create an idea or solve a problem and then make that solution happen. And you use all those kind of skills. So I put it. I wrote the book. Pearson published it. It was endorsed by an accident by the President of the United States. Someone who worked for me at Queen's had a friend who was a nursery nurse who was going across to the States to be the nursery nurse for this president, and took the book with him. I never met this nurse, and the book came back signed by the president. I'm not allowed to say which president on this, just for thing, but there was 2 pages written all over the book how they felt this was, this was really useful and made. So you can see there are a lot of unlikely things and maybe chances and luck there. So more and more. I then developed a learning journal, because the biggest thing we all tend to do is, here's a theory of these companies. You need to practice and use it all the time. So I developed product for the students constantly to use it. Then businesses who come into Queen's and then beyond. But it's been then went all over the world now. So there's like E-Factor's huge in South Africa, where it's been used as a mentoring tool. How are you doing with these skills as you start up your business? It's been used in China. So it was really a solution to the problem, because how do you put enterprise into, let's say, a nursing module? And the module's already there. You don't suddenly go, module, here's nursing entrepreneurship 101. There's no room in the curriculum for it. It was changing how a module was taught and how people would kind of create and make a solution happen within the context of their subject area. And so gradually it became realized that this was relevant, not just to students, but really to everyone in the global economy moving on, that people could make their businesses better, people could make their corporate career better, a socially excluded person could move or change things round, and that it needed to go in to different bits of education. So it was a solution based on my fascination, maybe as a misplaced person, as someone who loves personal development and struggled at times to change my own behavior. With competence, you can read a book, yourself that you can read a book and yet apply it. And someone once said to me, very eminent, Professor John Thompson, entrepreneurship academic, well, that's fine, you've written how these behaviors that people must adopt. It's not going to be easy to do that, or that it's not, and it's certainly not easy to change behavior. Lots of people ignored it because they didn't want me to be the man with the model, and they weren't in my field. And at times it didn't credit, but it just refused to go away because it really works. It's like coming up with something. You think it's this wonderful thing, eureka, and you're brilliant and whatever. But I come up because I had to find something. I had to go on my own experience. I got a little bit of help, and a very difficult situation. Then gradually got a testing ground, and it just worked. And I come across people all the time. For instance, in Northern, I walk into Boots Pharmacy, or you walk into somewhere in Liverpool, and they'll have recognised me and say how they still use it and go beyond. Really, I would say definitely not with my ego peak, but I would say it's, in one sense, there's a lot of it common sense, but it came from real life observation of people dealing with disruption, innovation, and change. So it's a simple model, but it needs to be. The book was written very quickly. I need to do comprehensive with each one. You need all the skills. You need to constantly monitor where you are. They're all connected. If you're working on your creativity, you do need to improve your negotiation and your other skills, so that it needs to be brought together. And educators, the people who tell other people or show other people do, they need to live it themselves. So I constantly take my own questionnaire once a month. I constantly try to work, and I see it going up and down. For instance, I'd feel, despite being the son of a car dealer, I'm not a particularly good negotiator. I would say I'm a 2 out of 10. I'll just say yes and can't be bothered. So I can work up to be about a 7. And if I get relaxed and don't take the test and keep reflecting what I'm doing. So it's a lifelong learning tool that we all need in that context. I think it has. The Chinese have been very interested to use it with artificial intelligence to change people's behavior. And I wasn't too sure about that at the start, but sometimes I think I certainly need to maybe make it more technological and get an app and do a few more things out now that everyone can use it much easier. But it's something at times I want it to go away. It was the basis of my success. A lot of people like it. They like the stuff. They made it work, but a lot of people in positions inside, other stuff, because it was mine, there was at times, opposition to it, but it really has worked. So we could say, what is the E factor? It's based on 15, 20 years of experience and at times pain. I got some knowledge and got a situation to apply. So in some ways, it's an unlikely story, but I hope it's an inspiring one, because out of difficulties or challenges, you can create something. And there's a side of me at times where I want to leave it behind and come up with new things, but I think I can't let it go, because it is a very sound basis. You can add things to it, and it really does work.
It's almost like it sort of feels like it's a gift that's been given to you, and you are the sort of the guardian of it, if that makes sense. You're so right. You're so right, Pete. And I feel that responsibility to it. At times, because you kind of think, well, it's been around that time, and it's been very frustrating times where people would deliberately or otherwise
try to ignore it, or even not use it. I'm not really interested in money. It's like South Africa. I'm not interested in taking money out of all this that's happening in South Africa. What I'm just excited is to see is to see the impact of it. So yes, the whole thing is really I love it when I think about it. And as you get older, you're a bit more relaxed about what you're going to do. You do next and stuff. And I'm extremely happy that I feel I come up with something good and practical in a difficult situation that hopefully will live beyond me. What I've got to do is over the next couple of years drive it, maybe make it more technology with apps or with artificial intelligence, and hand it over. And I don't feel as precious. I own this, and this is all about me. I do feel, as you say, genuinely out of disruption and challenge, I got some opportunities, and it was maybe over a short period of time, which is just evolved and evolved. And I would never have if you'd asked me at certain stages, it certainly didn't look that I was going to happen. So I like to think, it just tell people that it's not about, I'm saying I'm a wide success, but it's like you can get good challenges and good opportunities out of the most unlikely things if you'll keep learning and keep doing things.
It is back to that sort of the analogy, isn't it? It takes a lifetime to become an overnight success. It's
and it is, sadly, yes. It's like I kind of go, I was kidding. Oh, you kind of go, yeah, it does, and you need that resilience to keep going. But at least I'm more relaxed about it now. I do hope some of the, you just get, you hear about people who, if something goes well for them, that there are downsides to it, and surprising at times people's attitudes or whatever. And I'm past all that now. I'm happy. And I feel quite blessed.
What's a bit of a looking forward and sort of forward mission and bucket list or love list, whatever way you look? I mean, what's out there for David?
Yeah, I think I want it to get more into. I really want it where it's used very strongly to change a region. So what I'm working at Cumbria, where it's been used to transform a region, and you're linking the schools, the university, you're linking socially excluded, you're linking local businesses, you're linking large business, you're linking declining industries, you're linking social, and you're linking that all together as a kind of ecosystem. And that's the kind of model then through Cumbria, then let them, maybe them or somebody else that does it, where that can be ruled out. So I'd like to think that it would be used more, because everybody wants an entrepreneurial ecosystem. Everybody wants to find a way to do it. I, by accident, kind of discovered a way to do it and works. And so it just the stage now, I'd like to spend away at handing it on. So I think I've got to systemize things a bit. I think I've got to add the technology. I mean, it's ridiculous, really, that there's not an app that people can use. People to use, print it off or look at it, whatever, in a journal. So it's moving forward with that, refining and putting in more material, getting up materials, books and materials and courses, training more people that they can do it. Only so much you can do it. So people to do it in different countries or regions, and being there if I can to help them. But it's just that hopefully it gets it gets out there, and I honestly believe that maybe another 10 years before, if even that's all done, that people will realize it and will really use it to its full potential. And I'm fine about that. I hope I'm still here, but that's good.
That's quite something, really, isn't it? When it's, like I say, you are intrinsically linked, but also, it needs time to mature, a bit like an entrepreneur, a bit like, you need to hit a certain point in your life that just then suddenly the worlds align, or just the factors are correct, and then it just...
And that's it. And it can be, I would say, but yes, don't go, but it is incredibly frustrating. You kind of go, you know, as I said, people have come up with not very good models since, and in the last year or two, and mine's been around 14 years, and you kind of go, I just want it used. But it's been great. It's given me such joy. It gives me such joy to have made a difference long term in people's lives, so it fulfills. There's something in there where you want to do something, and that's good. I've had my thing. So I think taking that forward a bit, maybe writing a bit more, selecting. Be nice to get a few more face-to-face keynotes, because I love doing keynotes to figure out that may never happen again. But just getting it out there and helping some other people to spread the word. That's the next stage.
Do you think in general, are you understood? Do people get you?
That's a really good question, Pete. Sometimes I'm not so sure, because what am I? Academics are a little bit suspicious because I'm very down to earth, and I would say I'm a pracademic, and I've written plenty of papers and other books, but I'm not. That's not really my thing. It's about actually making it happen. So I operate in an environment where usually the researcher is key in universities, and then working in where corporate governance, someone who does something good but wants to break all the rules doing it, as to make change happen. I'm not so sure. I think that's a really good point, and maybe someone else, to take the message for, it's when something is very much tied to you, that's good, and that's good and that's bad. That's why I suppose I'd like some of the people that are coming across, like the guys who have really made the model of their own, and I'm not financially benefiting from it, and I don't care. I just love to see someone else that's made it their own, gets it good, and is making real change. So yes, I think I'm a bit of a, I wouldn't have said I would have always been seen as a maverick, but somehow I got all the timings of the new industry stage of my life, or whatever's come through, all came together.
I mean, what for you then would you say are your core values? Where do you sit there?
My core values, I suppose, are that you help. Core value is help other people to be the best they can be. But first of all, you need to be the best you can be and walk your talk. I think it's almost the terrible thing in being a lecturer or trainer or whatever, and I'm all of those things, is sometimes you don't always live your own model or what you're telling other people to live, and that's and that's something I've always had a challenge really applying all that. And you can see obviously in the study NLP, which is the study of unconscious competence. I've always been fascinated where to know things and yet not be applying and using them, and we all tend to do that. So that's a very broad mission, which I've kind of brought down into my own particular little field, which I feel is not necessarily about learning to be an entrepreneur who runs a business, but learning to be entrepreneurial and innovative in their mindset and in dealing with change wherever they might find themselves.
I agree. I find it fascinating how people can, and listen, I would be guilty of it myself. I'm great at helping others, not necessarily myself, and it's almost like that period in life where you have to come up to 40 years of age, for example, where the momentum to go forward, it's harder just because you're a little bit older. But actually then you sort of realize, well, I'm teaching others, so time to suck up my own medicine in a way. Does that make sense?
That's it. And that's the challenge I still have to force myself to do, because it's this natural thing where you don't walk your talk. And you don't need to be dominated by the thing, and it's not so bad. It is kind of part of the thing, but you've kind of got to constantly challenge it. I would say it's the biggest problem in other people using it then, where they won't put themselves through immersive experience to really use or make it. They want to just pass it on to somebody else and know the theory of it, but that's not how you do it. So I certainly feel I need to be a bit, constantly fighting to be a better example of that.
Is there an element of that with the teaching where you almost sort of residing that maybe it won't happen for you, but you hope it happens to other? I mean, is that Is that a
I
thing?
think so. But I think you've got to learn, and as you get older, you realize other people are the future, and you're really wanting them to get, you've in one sense had your time a bit. I think so. I think passing on, but I think you've got to work as best you can to be an exemplar. What's always wrong with here? I mean, people are very suspicious of me at Queen's because I had a lot of practical entrepreneurship experience, as well as pretty good academic qualifications, but they didn't like that because they didn't have that. Was somehow not for it. Whereas in America, that's the one thing they would have had. The person they would have had teaching their class would have been someone who'd either ran a business very successfully or maybe even failed, but had been out there. Whereas it's not encouraged in our education system, or people would get part of their time to do real stuff outside, which they then would feed back into the education.
Isn't it funny how society interacts with entrepreneurs in general? I mean, you could be one or want to be one or whatever, but like I say, I don't know whether it's Northern Ireland or UK, it's sort of, yeah, if you do well, don't get too big headed. Or you go to America and it's the other way around. You've got oodles of confidence and maybe haven't quite.
Yes.
It's a bit of both, really, isn't it?
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to be both. I mean, I would have certainly. I did very well in that phase of my career, but it'd be much cleverer if I had a certain stage at Queen where I was working 120 hours. If I'd sat down and written what's called as a 4-star paper, I would have progressed. I mean, Queen's never gave me my professorship. I got it elsewhere, Liverpool and Cumbria and outside. So because all they wanted me to do was write a 4-star paper, but I would have had to have given up doing the live thing that was working. So yeah, it's not always the cleverest thing to do, but yeah, it's been great.
Wow, it's fascinating. So tell us, David, I mean, if you were to summarize your fire in the belly in 1 or 2 words, what would that be?
It would literally be passion, maybe 3 words: passion, excitement, and learning. PELLEP. So it's our new phrase. Passion still to learn, passion to help other people to learn, and an excitement that things can be done, because I was very privileged to get an unexpected chance a little bit later than most. So actually, if I think started to really take off, and I did very well in my late 20s, but it really took off there when I was 40, Pete. So the world is your oyster now.
Love it.
Brilliant.
David, where can people reach out to you, follow you?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. I'll send you. I've got a new eFactor address which I'll send to you, Pete. That if you can maybe pass on or put out there. My email address, David Gibson 970@yahoo.com. But yes, I've even got an eFactor address. Anybody's and stuff now brought in. I will pass it all on to you. But I'm very happy if anybody wants to contact me, even to tell me I'm wrong or debate or whatever, because I do care and I do want to share.
Closing message.
Listen, accept change, accept disruption. We're in a constantly changing world. Treasure your life. Work on developing your own skills and do your best to help others. To help others have long-term impact, and still look after yourself. And we all get a chance to shine sometime. Take your chance, only because it's good fun.
David, love it. Thank you for sharing your passion. Thank you for sharing your journey. I look forward to hearing from you again.
Cheers.